Concern is growing over the safety of air travel as the first domestic Ebola patient fights the disease. It turns out the man's journey back to the U.S. from Liberia spanned 4 airports on 3 continents. But the CDC says he wasn't contagious while traveling because he hadn't shown any symptoms yet. Shelby Holliday has been looking into this. So, first of all, it would be worrying had you been on the same flight with this guy, but the CDC says don't worry.
Yeah, the good news is that Ebola is not airborne. As we've heard many times, it's only transmitted via bodily fluids. But given this news, I was starting to reach out to see how airlines are prepared to handle more infected passengers, if they're prepared to handle infected planes, and the responses I got were pretty alarming. The Federal Aviation Administration says the FAA does not have rules on decontaminating planes. An airline would consult with CDC on that. CDC told me I would suggest speaking with an airline, and when I talk to airlines, they say they're complying with CDC guidelines. So it appears that there are no official rules, no official oversight when it comes to decontaminating planes and sanitizing airplanes for passengers. The CDC does have guidelines, and it does tell airlines to follow these certain rules. They recommend using protective gear, washing hands, treating bodily fluids as infectious. Those are kind of no-brainers here. And the airlines are telling me that they do have procedures in place and safety is a priority. But again, there's no official oversight. It appears there are no rules.
Have the airlines on which this man flew contacted all of the other passengers to just make them aware that they were on that flight? That
is unclear at this point. We do know it was a United plane coming from Brussels to Washington, D.C., and then Washington, D.C. to Dallas. We have not spoken to passengers yet. The CDC was trying to focus on the symptoms in Dallas and the people he was in contact with in Dallas. But there is reason for passengers to be worried. However, I spoke to analysts, and they say that at this point, if the news gets worse, things could get worse for airlines. But at this point, the impact will be smallish because Ebola is not airborne like H1N1 or SARS. It doesn't pose as big of a risk to the airlines. And again, this man is in Dallas now. That's where he was infected. He was not infected on the actual airplane.
Right. Well, I'm sure people on those planes anyway will be taking their temperature.